I've been driving trucks for almost 20 years, and I've seen just about everything the American highways can throw at you. Blizzards in Wyoming, tornadoes in Oklahoma, and more close calls with deer than I can count. But nothing ever rattled me like what happened one night on Highway 50, somewhere in the middle of Nevada. It was late October, and I was hauling a load of auto parts from Salt Lake City to Sacramento. Highway 50 is called the loneliest road in America for a reason. There are stretches where you can drive for hours without seeing another car. Just endless desert and the occasional flicker of headlights in the distance. I'd left Ely around 10 p.m., planning to make it to Fallon by sunrise. The night was pitch black, no moon, just the glow of my headlights cutting through the emptiness. I had the radio on low, sipping coffee, trying to keep my mind sharp. Around 2 a.m., I saw something up ahead, a figure standing on the shoulder, waving her arms. As I got closer, I realized it was a woman, maybe in her late 20s, wearing a white dress that looked out of place in the desert night. I slowed down, thinking maybe she'd broken down or needed help. She stepped into the beam of my headlights, her face pale and eyes wide. I rolled down the window and called out, asking if she was okay. She didn't answer, just stared at me, her lips moving like she was trying to speak, but no sound came out. I felt a chill run down my spine. Something about her didn't feel right. I told her I could call for help, but she shook her head and pointed down the road toward the darkness. I looked, but there was nothing there, just empty highway stretching for miles. I offered to let her sit in the cab while I called the state police, but she backed away, shaking her head. Then, as suddenly as she'd appeared, she turned and started walking down the shoulder, her bare feet barely making a sound on the gravel. I watched her in the mirror for a few seconds, debating whether to follow or just drive on. Finally, I decided to call it in. I grabbed my phone and dialed 911, explaining what I'd seen and giving them my location. The dispatcher said they'd send a patrol car, but warned me not to pick up any hitchhikers, especially at night. I waited for a few minutes, but the woman never came back. Eventually, I pulled back onto the highway and kept driving, glancing in the mirrors every few seconds. About 10 miles down the road, I saw her again, standing in the middle of the lane, arms at her sides, staring straight at me. I slammed on the brakes, tires screeching, heart pounding. But when I got out and shined my flashlight, she was gone. No footprints, no sign that anyone had been there at all. I made it to Fallon just after sunrise, still shaken. I told a few other drivers at the truck stop what happened, and one of the old-timers just nodded. "You saw the white lady," he said. "She's been out there for years. Some say she was killed by a drunk driver. Others say she's looking for her lost child. But everyone who sees her says the same thing: don't stop and don't follow." I don't know what I saw that night, but I've never driven Highway 50 after dark again. Sometimes when I'm alone on a long stretch of road, I think about that woman in the white dress, and I wonder if she's still out there, waiting for the next trucker to come along. I was hauling a load of frozen food from Dallas to Phoenix, running behind schedule after a long day of traffic and construction. By the time I hit the New Mexico border, I was exhausted, my eyes burning from staring at the road. I decided to pull off at a rest stop just outside Deming, a place I'd used before. Nothing fancy. Just a row of parking spots, a couple of picnic tables, and a bathroom that always smelled like bleach and old cigarettes. It was just after 3 a.m. when I parked my rig, killed the engine, and climbed into the sleeper to get a few hours of shut-eye. The lot was almost empty, just one other truck and a beat-up sedan parked under a flickering light. I locked the doors, pulled the curtains, and tried to relax, letting the hum of the highway fade into the background. I must have dozed off, because the next thing I remember is waking up to the sound of knocking, 3 sharp raps on the driver's side door. I checked my phone. It was 3:47 a.m. I sat up, heart pounding, and peeked through the curtain. A man was standing outside, his face hidden in the shadows, wearing a dark hoodie and jeans. He was just standing there, not moving, not saying a word. I didn't open the window. I just shouted, "What do you want?" He didn't answer, just knocked again. 3 slow, deliberate knocks. I grabbed my flashlight and shined it through the glass. For a split second, I caught a glimpse of his face, pale, with deep-set eyes and a twisted, almost hungry smile. I told him to get lost, that I was calling the cops. He didn't move. He just stood there, staring at me, then slowly walked around to the passenger side and knocked again. I locked the doors, double-checking the latches, and dialed 911. The dispatcher told me to stay put and that a patrol car was on the way. While I waited, the man circled the truck, tapping on the windows, dragging his fingers along the metal. I could hear him whispering, but I couldn't make out the words. Every so often, he'd stop and just stand there, staring up at the cab, his face lit by the occasional flash of headlights from the highway. After what felt like forever, I saw the red and blue lights of a sheriff's cruiser pulling into the lot. The man vanished into the darkness, slipping between the parked cars and disappearing into the scrub brush beyond the rest area. The deputy searched the area but found nothing. No footprints, no sign that anyone had been there at all. I gave my statement and tried to calm down, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd been targeted, watched. The deputy told me there had been a few reports of a man harassing truckers at rest stops along I-10, but they'd never caught him. Some drivers said he tried to break into their cabs. Others said he just watched them for hours, never speaking, never leaving. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. I got back on the road as soon as the sun came up, my hands still shaking on the wheel. For weeks after, I kept a tire iron by my seat and never stopped at a rest area after midnight. Even now, years later, I still check my mirrors every time I pull off the highway, half expecting to see that pale face staring back at me from the shadows. Some nights when I'm parked in a lonely lot, I hear the echo of those 3 knocks and I wonder if the man is still out there, looking for another trucker to visit. I was running a route from Chicago to St. Louis hauling a load of electronics. It was late March, and the weather was miserable. Cold, steady rain that turned the highway slick and the rest stops muddy. I'd been driving for hours, windshield wipers thumping, when I saw him. A man standing on the shoulder just outside Springfield, thumb out, soaked to the bone. Normally, I never pick up hitchhikers. Every trucker knows the stories. Robberies, scams, worse. But something about this guy made me slow down. He looked desperate, shivering in a thin jacket, his duffel bag sagging with water. Against my better judgment, I pulled over and rolled down the window. "Where you headed?" I asked. He leaned in, rain dripping from his hair. "St. Louis," he said, voice barely above a whisper. "My car broke down. I just need a ride to the next truck stop." I hesitated, but the rain was coming down harder and he looked harmless enough. I unlocked the passenger door and he climbed in, mumbling a thank you. The cab filled with the smell of wet clothes and something else, something metallic like old coins. We drove in silence for a while, the only sound the rain and the hum of the engine. I tried to make small talk, but he barely responded. Just stared out the window, hands clenched in his lap. Every so often he'd glance at me, his eyes dark and hollow. About 20 miles down the road, I noticed something strange. The duffel bag at his feet was moving just a little, like something inside was shifting. Tried to ignore it, telling myself it was just the road, but the feeling of unease grew stronger with every mile. Finally, I asked him about the bag. He looked at me, his face suddenly tense. "Just my stuff," he said. "Nothing important." We passed a rest area, and I offered to pull over, thinking maybe he'd get out and I could be done with the whole thing. But he shook his head. "Keep going," he said, voice flat. "I'll tell you when to stop." The rain got heavier and the highway emptied out. I started to regret picking him up, my nerves on edge. Then, out of nowhere, he started talking, fast, almost frantic. He told me he'd been on the road for days, that he'd lost everything, that people were after him. He said he couldn't trust anyone, that the only safe place was St. Louis. I tried to calm him down, but he just got more agitated. He started rocking back and forth, clutching the duffel bag to his chest. I glanced over and saw his knuckles were scraped raw, like he'd been in a fight. Suddenly he shouted, "Stop the truck!" I slammed on the brakes, skidding to a halt on the shoulder. He threw open the door and jumped out, running into the darkness, the bag swinging from his hand. I sat there, heart racing, watching as he disappeared into the trees. For a moment, I thought about following him, but something told me to stay put. I locked the doors and called 911, telling the dispatcher what happened and giving them my location. A state trooper arrived about 20 minutes later. We searched the area, but there was no sign of the hitchhiker. No footprints, no bag, nothing. The trooper told me I wasn't the first to report a strange man hitchhiking in the rain along that stretch of highway. Some drivers said he vanished into thin air. Others claimed he left behind a trail of blood. I finished my run to St. Louis, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd picked up something, or someone, that wasn't supposed to be there. For weeks after, I had nightmares about that night, about the duffel bag moving on its own, about the look in the hitchhiker's eyes. Now, whenever it rains on the highway, I keep my doors locked and my eyes on the road. I don't stop for anyone, no matter how desperate they look, because sometimes the people you meet on the road aren't people at all.